Hello and welcome back to the CleanSlate theme development tutorial series. My name is Adam, and today we are going to be talking about how to include CSS, JavaScript, and images into your CleanSlate themes. So as a demonstration, I have actually created a very simple HTML page with a few JavaScript and CSS and image resources. And we're just going to take these as an example and convert the existing HTML link, script, and image tags, and we're going to convert those into the tags that CleanSlate uses for each of those HTML tags. So let's dive right in. So this is what it looks like in your browser. I'm going to go over to my code editor. This is what it looks like in the code editor right here. You'll notice that I'm following the same structure we outlined earlier, where the images folder is called images, JavaScript style sheets. This is exactly the same as our CleanSlate theme structure. Here I have two link tags, and I'll even zoom in a little bit here to make sure we can have the text big enough for you all. I have an image tag right here, and I have several script tags at the bottom. So first, let's look at what it means to include a link tag or include a style sheet in your CleanSlate theme. So you'll notice that at the end of these link tags are the names of my style sheets, and I'm going to go ahead and open these up. You can see them right here. So what a tag looks like in CleanSlate to include a style sheet is, it's always, remember, going to start with R:, and then for a style sheet it's going to be include style sheet. And then what we're going to do is give it an attribute called name and equals, and then we're going to say normalize. And note that at the end here, we actually don't need to include the CSS extension because it already knows that we are including style sheets, so CSS is not necessary. So we have included this one. Now we need to include this one right here. So let's just go ahead and copy this and paste it in here, and we can change this to be styles. And now that we have these in here, I can just go ahead and comment these out. So if you are including style sheets in your CleanSlate theme, this is how to do it. You do it with the R::include style sheet tag. Now I have two R::include style sheet tags, but if you'll notice that I actually have a lot of repetition going on right here, and I don't necessarily need that. One of the things that CleanSlate is able to do is you are able to actually pass a comma-separated list of the files that you need for style sheet for CSS and JavaScript into the include style sheet and include JavaScript tags. So now that I've included a comma and added styles here, I can actually remove this, and now this tag is actually going to include the these two style sheets in this order. So normalize will be first, styles will be second. If I had another style sheet, I could do it just like that. So that's a pretty handy technique. It's automatically going to actually take these two files and combine them on the back end, and then based on your configuration in your config.yml file at your theme's root, it may even minify them for you. Now that we've seen how to include style sheets, let's look at how to include JavaScript files into our CleanSlate themes. So this is a list of JavaScript files that we have in our JavaScript folder right here. It's going to load jQuery first, jQuery UI, responsive nav, and then app.min.js. In CleanSlate, in order to get in order to attach JavaScript to your page, similarly to what we did for style sheets, we have to R::include JavaScript, and then pass it a name attribute, and we're going to close off that tag there. So in this name attribute, very similar to what we did up here, we can do this for the names of our scripts. Now I kind of forgot to mention that since we know we're including a style sheet, it's automatically looking in the style sheets folder. Thus, we don't have to pass this style sheets path for style sheets. That goes the same with including JavaScript. Since we already know we're including JavaScript, it's in this JavaScript folder, so we don't need to include the JavaScript's path in the name. So what we can do here is we can just type in for name, we can say, okay, we want to do jQuery first, and remember, we can type in a comma separated list of files we want to include, and we don't need to include the file extension, so I do not need to include the .js, and as I said before, do not need to include the JavaScript's path in front. So if I want to include jQuery UI next, I would do jQuery UI, and then I'd type comma, and I'd say responsive nav, and I'd type comma, and I'd say app.min, and then this would be our final tag. So then I could come in here and comment these out, and here is our finished include JavaScript tag. So as what you see up here, this is the include style sheet tag, and it's got an attribute name. Both of them have an attribute called name, and they take a comma separated list of the files you want to include. Similarly to how when you comma separate your style sheets, if you comma separate your JavaScript files, the system will take those files, put them into one file, and if your settings in the config.yml file at the root of your theme say so, it will minify and mangle your JavaScript files for you, which is a pretty handy feature out of the box. So we've covered how to include both style sheets and JavaScript files. What about images? All right, so this is an image file just in normal HTML. Let's look at what it takes to include an image in CleanSlate and in the HTML in CleanSlate. And I should mention that this technique is only for images that you are hard coding into your theme for CleanSlate. For example, maybe you have a social media icon that is in the HTML of your theme that you don't want your content editors to be able to edit. You would hard code that image into the theme. Now, let's pretend for a minute that I forgot how to write this image tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the CleanSlate CMS site and click on How To's and Tips, Theme Development, and then I'm going to go to the tag documentation. And I'm going to scroll through this tag documentation, and there's actually two image tags here. One is image tag and image URL. Our image tag will output a full image tag, and image URL will actually only output the URL needed to reference the image in your theme. So I'm going to go with the image URL tag and click on it. And here at the bottom, it gives you an example of what this would look like in, so we have a normal HTML image tag, we have our src attribute, and then this actually has our image URL tag. So I'm going to just go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to paste this in right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy this so I have it, because I'm going to change this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the entire path here. I'm going to paste in my I'm going to paste in my our image URL tag, and this is our image URL tag. It goes directly in the src because it is actually getting and fetching a URL. And then here I'm just going to copy the name of my image and paste it right in here. So now I can comment this the HTML image out. This is what it looks like to include an image in your theme that it will be output directly in the HTML source. So it is a normal image tag starting off, and then for the source it does the image underscore URL, and it gets passed the name of the file along with the extension. And keep in mind that file exists right here. And of course I have an alt tag on the end that describes the image. So that's how you do images, JavaScript, and CSS into your theme. what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and start to remove some of these comments that we have since we're done with that. And this will hopefully simplify how things look a little bit. Now, in your when you're making sites, you might run across assets that are hosted on a CDN, maybe a third-party CDN. So what I was going to do was I was actually going to take normalized CSS and jQuery and attach them to this page using a CDN and show you what that looks like. So if I've already actually got normalized.css CDN pulled up, I'm going to copy this URL. I'm going to go in here and type link and paste this normalized CSS CDN in here. And what you'll notice is it's just a straight up HTML link tag. There's nothing else about it. We basically don't have to do anything else. I'm removing it in our include style sheet tag because we only want to include it once. But in order to attach style sheets from a CDN, all you got to do is basically paste it into the head of your site. That's about it. Similarly with JavaScript resources, if you have a JavaScript resource on a CDN, what you can do is just remove it. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it from here because we don't need to include it twice. And I'm going to say, oh, I need to copy it apparently. Copy that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and paste it right in there. So this is essentially just a script tag, just an HTML script tag with a source attribute on it that references the CDN, that references the jQuery source on the CDN. And that's jQuery right there. So if you are looking to work with CDN resources for CSS or JavaScript, that's how to do it. If you are looking to include CSS on your site, you would use the include style sheet tag and put them in the style sheets folder. Put your style sheets in the style sheets folder. And you would, for JavaScript, we would include the include JavaScript, pass it a name or a comma separated list of names. And similarly for images, you would use the image URL and pass it a name of the actual image in your images folder. So that's pretty much it about including assets into your CleanSlate themes. In the next video, we're going to talk about the almighty editable region. So stay tuned.